इन्हीं से सुनिए,
जानकार बनिए,
सतर्क रहिए।
It's 5 p.m. across India. I am Tanvi Taneja. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global, bringing you all the day's big stories from across India and the world. With me today from London is my colleague, Ollie Barrett. Good afternoon, Ollie.
Hello, Tanvi. It's 11:30 a.m. in London and 12:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. EU leaders gather in Brussels, Finland's border with Russia reopens, and a new fighter jet deal between the UK, Italy and Japan. First, the headlines.
It's a decisive moment for Ukraine at the EU summit as Hungary opposes accession talks. Russia's Vladimir Putin says peace with Ukraine will only take place when their objectives are met. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says offensive will continue until victory is achieved. US National Security Advisor to visit Israel for talks.
We are continuing until the end, until victory, until Hamas is annihilated.
Leaders of Venezuela and Guyana to meet today for talks in the Caribbean nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines over a territorial dispute. And Britain, Japan and Italy signed an international treaty to build supersonic stealth fighter jet, the joint development of the program to begin in 2025. First news from Europe. The European Union leaders remain divided over Ukraine's membership bid as they have gathered for a high-stakes summit in Brussels. Hungary continues to block both the membership bid and Eurozone's $54 billion in financial aid for Kiev. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban said Ukraine failed to meet the preconditions set by the country.
Enlargement is not a theoretical issue. Enlargement is a merit-based, legally detailed process, which has preconditions. We have set up 7 preconditions, and even by the evaluation of the Commission, 3 out of the 7 is not fulfilled. So there is no reason to negotiate membership of Ukraine now, even not to negotiate.
Meanwhile, Finland's Prime Minister called Hungary's opposition to Ukraine's EU membership bid a blackmailing tactic.
Accept any blackmailing. We have to find decision together. What we decide or what we does not decide is clear signal to Moscow, to Kiev, to Washington, to Beijing. And that's why we have to decide that we support Ukraine.
Further, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that progress had to be made in the accession talks between the European Union and countries such as Ukraine, Western Balkan states, Moldova and Georgia.
I'm absolutely sure that this is a necessary debate here in Europe. We must make progress in this accession processes we have. It is a decision of the European Union that we are ready for enlargement, discussing with the Western Balkan states, discussing with Moldova, Ukraine and Georgia. And especially in the case of Ukraine, we think it is a necessary sign that we support the activities of the Ukrainians to meet all the measures that we ask them to meet.
And DD India's Alex Cadier joins us live from Brussels now. Alex, what is the real reason for Hungary's threat to veto new aid money and block the start of membership talks with Kiev?
Well, that's the crucial question, and we're hearing different things from different Hungarian officials. We heard Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister, just this morning behind me here in Brussels, saying that actually it's about those preconditions set by the European Commission, that he feels that Ukraine has not done enough work to be prepared to enter those accession negotiations. But just a couple days ago, his political director said, well, actually, maybe if the European Commission unfreezes some of the money it had frozen just a year ago, then that could convince Hungary to lift its veto. So it could be one or the other, it could be both, and it's not particularly clear at the moment. Now, some of the member states are very clear, and particularly parliamentarians in the European Parliament are very clear that they think this is a bargaining position, that Viktor Orban is trying to leverage his veto to get more money out of Brussels, more money out of the European Commission. Viktor Orban this morning pushing back against that, saying this isn't about bargaining, this isn't about haggling a deal, this is about trying to do this, doing things in a proper way. And so that is the debate at the moment. Clearly a lot of frustration in Brussels towards that Hungarian position. We've seen this before at previous European Councils, using that power of veto to try and leverage out more money from the European Commission. Those negotiations will rumble on today, probably late into the night, probably into tomorrow, and they will be very tense indeed.
Alex, could the release of the $23 billion in EU funds for Hungary end its opposition?
We think so. That is what the Balázs Orbán, the political director of Viktor Orban, no relation there, said could help. And that's not a guarantee, that's just a statement made. Now, to give you more detail on that, those $23 billion were frozen just about a year ago by the European Commission over concerns about democratic backsliding and rule of law issues in Hungary. And the Commission said Hungary needed to make some reforms for that funding to be unfrozen. Now, just yesterday, the European Commission said Hungary had done enough to get to that point, and they released 10 billion euros, about half of those funds. And so the rest of that money could be a key bargaining chip for the European Commission, for the European member states who want to get that support for Ukraine through. Crucially, the Ukrainians making it clear that this is an existential question for them. Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister, was here on Monday and said that this is the mother of all decisions, and he doesn't even want to think about what would happen if the decision did not go his country's way. And finally, I spoke just a few days ago to the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine for EU enlargement, and she said very clearly the message will be sent by the European leaders based on the decision they make. It'll either be sent to Ukrainian forces on the front line or Russian troops.
Indeed. Thank you, Alex, for those updates. Alex Cadier reporting from Brussels. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin today said the goals of its military special operation in Ukraine haven't changed. He also said that there were no conditions yet to improve its relations with the West. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, while EU will give an important message to Ukraine, Russian President, they're also giving an important message.
Certainly a closely watched one, Tanvi. The Russian president in that annual news conference and call-in show expressing willingness to foster relations with the United States, but criticised what he calls an imperial policy, suggesting it constrains the US in diplomatic engagements.
As for the United States, we are ready to rebuild relations with them as well. We believe that the United States is an important and necessary country in the world, but this imperial, absolutely imperial policy hinders them, not even us. How so? Because in the public consciousness, they should behave like an empire. If they agree on something or concede to someone, it is already perceived by the electorate as some kind of failure or a vacuum. So the elites are forced to behave in this way to some extent.
President Vladimir Putin also said that the objectives of Russia's so-called military special operation in Ukraine remain consistent, insisting that there is no requirement for an additional mobilization of army reservists.
There will be peace when we achieve our goals that you just have mentioned. Now let's return to these goals. They have not changed. I will remind you of what we talked about then. It's demilitarization, its natural status. As for demilitarization, if they don't want to come to an agreement, then we are forced to take other measures, including military ones.
Russia deployed 42 drones overnight and fired 6 missiles in southern Ukraine. That caused the death of 1 civilian and damage to grain warehouses near the Danube River. A medical facility, a private residence and a garage were also destroyed in that attack. The first buses from St. Petersburg have entered Finland as the country reopens its border with Russia. It was shut last month after 900 refugees from countries such as Somalia, Pakistan and Yemen entered Finland through Russia in November. NATO member Finland has accused Russia of funneling refugees to the border in retaliation for the country's decision to increase defence cooperation with the United States. To the Middle East, and US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has met with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia to discuss the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. The White House said the two officials discussed ways to increase the flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza. On Thursday, Sullivan is meeting with Israeli officials. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, says his country will continue its war against Hamas in Gaza with or without international support. He said in a radio message that nothing could stop Israel from continuing its offensive until it achieves victory against Hamas.
I want you to pass this along to the last of the soldiers. We are continuing until the end, until victory, until Hamas is annihilated. Let there be no doubt about this. This is important. It is a message I want to convey to each and every soldier over there. Nothing will stop us. We will go to the end, to the victory, no less than that.
Well, DD India's Sarah Coates joins us live now from Tel Aviv. And Sarah, this Sullivan meeting comes as the Biden administration appears to be toughening its stance on Israel's military operation.
Hello there, Ollie. Well, look, Washington is becoming increasingly worried about what it calls Israel's indiscriminate bombing campaign on the Gaza Strip, and this is certainly something that Sullivan will be discussing with these Israeli leaders. He's just touched down here in Tel Aviv, and he will potentially come past behind me any moment soon. Now, another issue that he is widely expected to raise is the time frame on this war. He is expected to give these Israeli officials a date on when they need to wrap up their operation in the Gaza Strip. But look what we've been hearing from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel will continue this war inside the Strip and will not cave to international pressure. Now, another issue of contention here, Ollie, is of course a post-war Gaza and what it should look like. Now, according to the Biden administration, this must be a two-state solution led by the Palestinian Authority, although Netanyahu is not having any of that. He says that simply will not happen. And over the last couple of days, he likened the PA to Hamas, saying that it wants to destroy Israel, but not immediately like Hamas, just in stages. So this certainly will be a busy day of meetings there for Sullivan and will be watched very, very closely.
OK, Sarah, and given all of that, what is the latest on the ground in Gaza?
Well, look, Ollie, the IDF has just released fresh video of what it says Palestinian gunmen surrendering to IDF troops. This is outside the Kamal Adwan hospital that is in the northern part of the Strip, and this is the same hospital that IDF troops surrounded and then raided over the last few days. Now, these pictures show men walking out, many with their hands in the air, before some are seen placing explosives and other weaponry on the ground. The IDF says they have now been taken into custody and will be interrogated. Now, also down in the south, in the Rafah area, the Israeli military has declared a zone, or a time frame, I should say, of no bombing. But look, this is an area that there were reportedly airstrikes a little earlier today, hitting civilian homes, reportedly killing dozens of people. And just finally, the situation down in the south, the southern part of the Gaza Strip, Ollie, is being described as a living hell. That's by Philip Lazzarini. He is the head of UNRWA, which is the Palestinian aid agency for refugees. He says the situation is absolutely horrendous. And you just need to look at the pictures. There are people wading through waist-deep water trying to carry injured and wounded people to help.
Sarah, thank you. That's DD India's Sarah Coates live from Tel Aviv. Israel's army chief, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, has celebrated Hanukkah with injured soldiers. Hailing the troops as true heroes, Halevi said that they are role models for Israel. The ceremony came after 10 Israeli personnel were killed in fighting in Gaza on Wednesday. The UK, Japan, advanced fighter jet. The country's 3 defence ministers have announced they will start a programme focused on creating a cutting-edge jet under an international treaty. The agreement requires ratification from each nation's parliament. It envisions the combat aircraft taking flight by 2035.
The risks and problems from Europe to the Indo-Pacific are clear for all to see. And so it is enormously important that we join together across our nations to produce this kind of security for our skies.
Poland's new Prime Minister Donald Tusk has been given a warm welcome by fellow leaders in Brussels after he took over the office on Wednesday. Tusk was sworn in nearly 2 months after Poland's election. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has congratulated Donald Tusk. PM Modi said that he looks forward to further deepening the long-standing and friendly relations between India and Poland. Amid a border dispute over the potential oil risk Essequibo region, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and Guyana President Mohamed Irfan Ali will hold face-to-face talks in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Thursday. Venezuela's government says the meeting is designed to preserve its aim to maintain Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace. The Office of the President of Guyana has confirmed that President Ali agreed to the meeting, but said that Guyana's land boundary is not up for discussion. The dispute is before the International Court of Justice, though a final ruling could be years away. The US House of Representatives has voted to officially open impeachment investigation into President Joe Biden. Republican lawmakers united behind the effort, even as Democrats said there is no evidence yet of any wrongdoing. The Republican-led House voted 221 to 212 in a party-line vote to open the investigation. The vote came hours after President Biden's son Hunter declined a closed-door call to testify. President Biden is gearing up for a potential rematch with his Republican opponent Donald Trump in the 2024 US election. Just one reason 2024 is going to be busy for us. Tanvi,
yes.
Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Ollie. Ollie Barrett joining us from London. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. In a trilateral phone call, the United States discusses Beijing's expansive territorial claims in the South China Sea with Japan and the Philippines. And Greta Gerwig, director of US summer blockbuster Barbie, will head the 2024 Cannes Film Festival jury.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs. With a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. The national security advisors of the Philippines, the United States and Japan urged China to refrain from further provocative actions. They voiced their concern about Beijing's recent dangerous and unlawful moves in the West Philippine Sea. In a trilateral phone call on Wednesday, the three officials reiterated their commitment to close coordination in the coming months to promote shared interests in a free and open Indo-Pacific. While China asserts nearly full control over the South China Sea, an international arbitral tribunal upheld the Philippines' sovereign rights in its exclusive economic zone and rejected China's expansive territorial claims in the contested waters. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida reshuffled 4 cabinet ministers on Thursday in an effort to mitigate the impact of one of the largest financing scandals his ruling party has encountered in decades. Kishida appointed former Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi as Chief Cabinet Secretary and former Justice Minister Ken Sayuto as Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry. India's Minister of Health and Family Welfare has highlighted the nation's achievement in the last 9 years under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He also stressed that the 7 pillars on which the government has worked have ensured women development in New India.
मोदी जी ने महिलाओं का विकास को वुमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट यानी कि महिलाओं के द्वारा विकास इस परिभाषा को चिन्हित किया। मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में देश बदल रहा है, देश आगे बढ़ रहा है, नया भारत का निर्माण हो रहा है। नए भारत में देश की महिलाओं की भागीदारी बराबरी की हो, महिलाओं को सम्मान मिले, महिलाओं को न्याय मिले, महिलाओं को देश की विकास की भागीदार बनाई जाए, महिलाओं को सशक्त की जाए। इसलिए मोदी जी ने 7 पिलर पर वुमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट पर काम किया है।
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is focusing on India's military power. The Indian-designed Tejas fighter jet is an example for the country to make more of such weapons. India's defence sector has seen several reforms, which include a new push for new roads, tunnels and bridges. 60% of border roads were built in the past 3 years. In 2020, a new post of a Chief of Defence Staff was created. The Indian government created a new Department of Military Affairs within the ministry. The fourth shift is in technology. India's Defence Research and Development Organisation manufactured several missiles. India also aims to add military muscle without spiralling costs. In this series, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, a nationwide campaign in India, has been making a transformative impact in Rajouri district in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra van, which reached Panchayat Dalogra and Godher in Dhangri block, conveyed the message of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his vision of making India a developed nation by 2047. The people present at the event took the Sankalp, pledged and expressed their commitment for the cause. And next we take a look at what else is happening around the world. The Supreme Court of the United States agreed to hear a bid by President Biden's administration to preserve abortion access, setting up a major ruling on reproductive rights in a presidential election year. The High Court also agreed to hear an appeal by the drugs manufacturer, Danko Laboratories. Abortion rights are a divisive issue in the 2024 presidential race, as Biden, who champions abortion rights, campaigns for re-election. Heavy rains caused widespread damage in northeastern Australia, uprooting trees, causing power outages, evacuations and road closures. Jasper, a Category 2 storm which made landfall in the state of Queensland, is now downgraded to a tropical low and heading northwest. Authorities have warned locals of a further downpour. And US Director Greta Gerwig who packed theatres this summer with the pink-themed movie Barbie, was named as the jury president for the 2024 Cannes Film Festival on Thursday. Greta will be the first female United States director to serve as jury president, taking the baton from the head of the 2023 jury. Recently, Swiss scientists have developed a groundbreaking technology that allows controlling a robotic arm with eyes and breathing, potentially aiding prosthetics design and offering healthy people extraordinary capabilities. Let's explore more on this.
In Switzerland, scientists have proven that extra robotic arms can be controlled using only eyes and breathing without affecting other tasks. Published in Science Robotics, the research could lead to advancement in robotic prosthetics for those with motor function loss.
Eventually, we were able to implement the interface that we developed for the control of a real robotic arm. And what was extremely interesting to see was that both trained participants and naive participants performed similarly, again showing the intuitiveness of our control interface.
Professor Silvestro Misera of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology aims for healthy individuals to control an extra arm naturally.
Our goal is to allow healthy people to control an extra arm as naturally as the real natural arms.
Using a virtual reality system, volunteers controlled the extra arms with their breathing and gaze. The team also discovered that muscles behind the ears, known as vestibular muscles, could be trained to control a computer mouse. The study is part of a project to develop wearable robotic arms for daily tasks or search and rescue.
So these muscles that we have in our body, but through evolution we have lost their functionality. We have found that through a few days of training, people could use these auricular muscles, which are this muscle we have behind the ears, to control this extra limb while still using their natural arms and still speaking and looking around.
That's all in this edition of DD India Global. Join us for another edition of the show at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Tanvi Taneja. From my entire team in New Delhi, thank you for watching. Namaskar.